Well, hello, hello, hello. This is Laquita Parks, and this is another episode of My Heart on Pages podcast. And I am your host, and I am the owner of Pay-Pro-V Publishing. And Pay-Pro-V means pain, progress, victory, because I believe without pain, there is no progress, and without progress, there can be no victory. So I help people take their stories from a thought to a realization. And I love authors. And I'm always so curious as to how they came up with the title for the book or what's the story behind the story. You know, there's always a story behind the story. So today we're going to hear the story behind the story with our special guest, Dr. Monica Jackson. And I am so very happy to have her here. Y'all listen, y'all know y'all was like, where's Laquita? She kind of missing a couple of episodes. But guess what? I had COVID, y'all. COVID. And it is no joke. It is a very tricky little virus. So if you're out there listening and you've had COVID or you haven't had COVID, be safe, follow the mandates. You know what? Use your own sense. Okay. Do what's best for you. If you're going out somewhere and there are people not wearing masks and you feel more comfortable wearing your mask, then guess what? Wear your mask. Do what you have to do to keep you safe. Okay. Now, that's my soapbox, and we're not here to talk about the COVID. We're here to talk to Miss Monica Jackson. But that's my story, and I can talk about it. So hello, Miss Monica Jackson, Dr. Monica Jackson. How are you?
Hello, Laquita. I am doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so glad we finally got a chance to reschedule. We had to reschedule you when I was not feeling up to par. Right. And thank you so much for your patience. I appreciate it.
Of course. And I'm so glad you're better.
Thank you. You know what? All good things happen for a reason, because then I had a chance to actually get your book.
Yes.
And I am loving. I've not gotten all the way through it, but you know, I'm a thumber, so I've thumbed through. Love this book. Love this book.
Thank you.
And I've actually shared it. I teach Bible study. Y'all, my chair just fell down. What's going on here? I teach Bible study, and I was talking to them about wounds of wisdom. So hoping that we can, do some things. And there are definitely a lot of things to look through and talk about in any type of biblical study. So thank you so much for being here. So can you tell the audience about yourself, where you're from, what you do, and then we'll dive right into this wonderful book of yours.
I am Dr. Monica Y. Jackson, and I always tell everybody keep that Y in there because there's a story behind that. I am a native Southern California. It's still where I reside. By trade, I'm an instructional designer, so I design courses for institutions, universities, as well as businesses. And my spare time, I love the beach. I can't swim. A native California can't swim, but I love being on the water because it's peaceful. And my all-time favorite thing to do is thrifting. I am a serious thriftaholic.
Girl after my own heart. Yes. Listen, find me a good thrift store and leave me in there and I'm good. I'm coming out with something. Yes. I'm coming out with something. It doesn't matter. Coming out with something. Right. So now you have me curious. You got to tell me the story behind the why.
Well, when I was in college, my third year in college, I want to say, we didn't have student IDs. We had social security numbers, and they did not use them in school. They used your name. And so there was somebody in there named Monica Jackson, and her grades were always messed up. So every single quarter, I had to go into the registrar's office to get my grades corrected. So I said, why are they always, in error? And so they said, oh, because your name is the same. I said, well, what about social security number? We don't have time. We go by name. So I said, well, let's correct this. Put that Y in there, which stands for Yvette. So we don't have this issue anymore, because when I'm looking at my GPA and it's supposed to be 3 point something, it's 1 point something, I have a problem.
I know, that's right.
So that's the story behind that.
That's right. There's always a why.
Correct.
There's always a why. And I love that. And speaking of the why, there is always a why behind behind our books. There's a why behind why we wrote our stories. And today we're going to talk about the why behind Wounds of Wisdom. Man, I love it. Look, I got the book, I got the journal, yay. I got the postcard, I got the bookmark. Yes. Listen, we ready. We
Yes.
ready. We ready. And I love it. So tell us about your book. Tell us the name of your book. And then y'all, if you guys are listening, and we'll load this to YouTube so you can actually see, but I love the cover. And so tell us the name of your book, and then tell us the story behind the cover. What's the why behind the cover? I got to know about these tears.
Well, the book is called Wounds of Wisdom. I'm going to show that book because I'm going to talk about it so you can see it. And as you can see, there's one single eye on there, and there's 7 tears on there. And from that tear, there are 7 words that come from there: friend, workplace, family, church, marriage, business, and children. And so there's a tear for every one of those. And what that means is I've shed some tears in every single one of those areas. And how the cover came to be is I was literally standing in the mirror one day, just, Lord, I need some guidance. I need some clarity. I need some peace. I need some hope. I need some love. I need some courage. I need some strength. And I saw my mascara just literally coming, literally just running down my eyes. And so I literally just took a snapshot of me and my face in the mirror.
So this is you.
That's actually my eye.
Oh, wow.
That's
Okay, this is beautiful. It really is a beautiful. I did not know that was you.
That's actually my eye, and it's my tears.
Oh my goodness. So very creative, very creative. I love it. I love it. And you know what? When I looked at the cover and I saw the tears, you are so right. Because as I related, every book that I get, and everybody should do the same thing. How does this relate to my life? Yes. A lot of times we choose books as they relate. There's some reason we choose them. If it's not a referral, it's because there's something in that book that could be a story that can help you, empower you, or something. As I looked at Wounds of Wisdom and I looked at your cover before I even opened it up, I was like, I have shed tears in all these areas too.
Yes.
And in all these areas, there's been some heartache and some pain in every single solitary one of these areas. Correct. Wow. Correct. I love it. So let's kind of dive right in. So tell us, where did the name of the book Wounds of Wisdom come from? Why that name?
Well, I'm going to start by saying, when you are, what can I say? I'm not going to say called. When you are given the torch or pass the torch to do something, and you really don't know that you're supposed to do it, and you find yourself in a position where you have to do it. So when I lost, I want to say during COVID, I lost all of my contracts. I got one back. And then in January of 2021, I lost my main contract, 6 figures. I'm like, okay, here we go again. And if you read the book, I've been through some issues with the workplace. Mm-hmm. And so literally that was January, I think 29th, I mentioned in the book. 2 days later, I felt like what I believe God was literally waking me up every single morning at a specific time. Mm-hmm. And I would literally, sometimes I didn't wash my face, brush my teeth. Sometimes I would, and I would just sit at the computer for 7 days a week for 8 to 10 hours and just write. Only time I got up from the computer was to go to the bathroom or to get a drink of water or something. And I was doing this every day for 7 days. Mm-hmm. I didn't know why, because I'm just sitting at the computer and just typing. And literally with 7 days, I started reading some of this and I'm like, oh my goodness. Now it wasn't really organized. It was organized in the thoughts in the way that it flows. Mm-hmm. There's only one chapter that was moved around, but there was no headings or anything. Mm-hmm. And so I sent this to 4 people, 2 people who knew me and 2 who did not. And the feedback was so overwhelming. Oh my goodness, it's powerful, so transparent. Nobody is going to say the things that you're talking about. Nobody is going to ever have the courage to talk about this. I went through this too. And I'm sitting here like, wait a minute, I'm not the only one that experienced this. So why did I have to wait 50 some years before I finally realized that somebody else has gone through these things, and I could have had someone that I could have talked to about it. And they said, me too. I've never had anybody I could talk to about it. Well, we're sitting here because we're silenced. And one of the things I'm committed to is unsilencing the silence. And when I wrote this book, I didn't think it was a book. I didn't know it was going to be a book. And literally, I believe that this was God's way of forcing me to do it, because if he hadn't taken, if my contracts weren't taken away, I definitely would not have written it, because I wouldn't have had time. And the title just automatically came. But nothing in the book has ever changed. The flow, the structure has changed, nothing changed, except for I moved one of the chapters around. And then when one of the people who reviewed the book, she said, there are so many words of wisdom in this book. And sure enough, went back to the computer and added words of wisdom and how to apply them to every single course. Every single chapter, as well as here are some resources. And that comes from my education background and being an instructional designer, because I didn't want, why does somebody want, again, I'm not an avid reader. I read some things that are going to improve me or something I'm going to learn, but not just somebody tell me it's a good book. I'm just not one to pick it up.
Right.
But why do I want somebody to read about Dr. Monica? Who am I that somebody needs to read about me? And so that wasn't the purpose. I wanted somebody to walk away with things. And what I hear is, yes, what you went through and some of the things that you've gone through were very devastating, but the most empowering is what you walked away with, the words of wisdom, the resources that you're able to give us. And so literally that's how the book came to be. It was never an intent. And I read it sometimes now, I'm like, oh my goodness, Dr. Monica, did you really say that? Did you say it that way? Did you talk to people that, oh my goodness. So I still get emotional when I feel the book. And when people tell me that they feel the book, I feel it too.
I love it. I love it. And you know what you just said, unsilencing the silence.
Yes.
And you're right, especially as women in the workplace where number one, we are the minority, whether you're Black or white, we're the minority. And then as women of color, we become the bottom part of the minority. And there is little respect. And so you have to walk on eggshells almost, because if you speak up for yourself, you're too aggressive. You know, if you don't speak up because you're too aggressive, then you're not being a team player, or you're not a self-starter, or all those different things that they put labels on, and they cause a world of hurt, because, and then you find yourself saying, why am I here? And feeling stuck. You know, I met a girl, I actually worked with her that I saw on Sunday, and I had not seen her in a while, but she works at the company that I work for. And I said, how are things going? And she said, oh, I hate it. I hate it. And sometimes I found myself having to kind of pull back on my excitement, because I love my job, you know. And I always think, wow, I love what I do. And you don't have to do that. What do you have all these talents, and you can do this and you can do that. And you kind of get, yeah, well, I don't know, because there has to be a certain amount of you have to be encouraged, but you also have to take the first step. So I love the story. And then I love the affirmations behind the story. But then when I got to resources and reminders, I was like, this is really good. Now, see, we're not going to go through the whole book and tell y'all everything, because you got to go buy the book. And Dr. Monica, tell them where they can buy the book before we get going into some more of this book.
You can get the book only on my website, drmonicajackson.com. And there's a wound behind that too. You know, I don't do the Amazons, to each his own. I don't do a lot of the other places that people do. So it's only on my website, drmonicajackson.com. And also there's a purpose for it. I want people, if you purchase the book, to read the book. I have people who will purchase the book and say there's just to support me. Don't waste your money like that. Read the book. If you buy it, read it, because it's a book that I believe that I wish that I had. And I believe that it's something that parents can share with their young adults, their teenagers going through things. and that we can actually prepare them for some things as opposed to sugarcoating what life is supposed to be about. Because in this season that we're living in this world we're living in, we can't be sugarcoating anything at all. And I think a lot of parents are struggling with that. This name it and claim it, believe it and receive it. Well, what happens when you don't receive it? So these are things we have to deal with, and these are things that I talk about in the book.
Well, I absolutely love it. I agree with everything you just said. When I read the resources and reminders, and the very first one, I was like, okay. And that one says, know that you are anointed for the job or position you now hold. Right. And the word now stood out to me because we don't know what we don't know, but where you are right now, it's where you are right now. You have to be appreciative, and then don't expect to be appreciated. Wow. Correct. Sometimes we go through and we expect to be appreciated. And when we don't get that appreciation, then we feel defeated. Correct. And everything that we've done, we've had the enthusiasm and the energy. And then when we don't get that acknowledgement or those accolades that we're looking for, then it deflates and we feel like what we've done has been in vain. Correct. Not the case. Not the case. I love that. So with and that was in workplace wounds. Yes. And I when I read your story, I immediately thought about, I don't know why, I thought about my college professors. And I thought about the differences in when I was in school. There was one teacher that I was very, very fond of, very, very fond of. And I never, until I read your workplace wounds, I never thought about it from their point of view. Yes. And I never thought about, because it's different when you're doing adult learners than when you're doing young people. We have to get it, but we have some attitudes. And we have some attitudes, and we have some do you know who I am kind of attitude. And some expectations, but that's on the student. And then going through what you were going through in the workplace, just being an African-American woman, a woman of color, trying to navigate through life and being treated unfairly, and still you have the responsibility of having to figure it out. Correct. And you did. Correct. You did. You had to go through some wounds.
Correct. And I always tell people, we have to put our expectations in place. Who said that we're supposed to stay at one place and retire for 20 years? Who said that? I mean, and that's what we're taught. Who said you're supposed to move up the corporate ladder? Who said you're supposed to make X number of dollars? Well, when you can't even manage what you have. Or maybe you're supposed to learn.
Wait, you better say that again. Say it again. Wait, I'm sorry. The people in the back didn't hear you. Wait a minute, y'all. Wait, say that one more time.
What I said is, who said you're supposed to make X number of dollars when you can't even manage what you have? Because the more you have, that's more you have to mess up and screw up with. And I don't think that we understand that everything that we go through and every environment that we're in, we have to take something away from that. Now, I learned that because I went through 5 layoffs in 1 year. Whoa. And when things don't turn out the way that you expect them to, you have to change this little thing up here and switch what's going on up here. Okay, I can't control what they do to me in the workplace. I'm not even going to try to fight the battle because it's too much energy. Now I'm not giving in, but guess what? Let me take control of what I can. So let me start a business. Let me look at my resources. Let me look at what I have to offer as far as my skill set. Let me have a different level of multiple streams of income so that if this place lets me go, that I still have something else to fall back on. And I don't go out here and still buy the latest and the greatest. And I try to live a little bit below my means as opposed to above my means. Mm-hmm. So when things happen, as one of the things that happened, boss walks in and say, we no longer need your services. Okay. Say, well, you don't look upset. I'm not, because I know who has carried me and who has provided for me. And it's definitely not this job.
You better say it.
So I know what it's like to have and not have. and still have a roof over my head and food in the refrigerator. So I don't worry about those things anymore. The first time it bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
The most recent time it bothered me. But the most recent time it bothered me is because I'm like, are we ever going to get past this? Does it ever get any better? But I said, you know what? I don't have time for the what ifs. I can't change any of that. So don't allow your mind to go there.
Exactly.
Don't even do it. Do what you can that's what's in your control to control. Leave all that other stuff alone. And that's what I think we have to do.
And you know what? And I tell people all the time, and I have, it's a reminder for me too, that you said it, I can't control anything anybody else does. When I worked in corporate America, I don't have it here now because I guess because I'm in my own environment. When I worked in corporate America, I had a sign on my desk that says act, don't react.
Yes.
Because when you react, then that's when all of the unraveling comes into play. Correct. So if you act, that means that you're prepared. You're always prepared for what's going to come next, yes, no matter how it comes, and being honest. And one of the things within that is teaching people how to treat you. When people know how to treat you, when you teach them how to treat you, then they already know how you're going to respond.
Correct.
If you come out of a bag, or as the little girl said to me, put these hands on them. If you come out and want to put your hands, that's what the kids, the precious darlings, little sweet, yes, precious darlings, they got something for you, I tell you. But you have to know, be confident in who you are. And you're right. If you're leaning and dependent on that paycheck and that's all you have at the end of the day, and you don't have that any longer, you're going to be devastated. I was talking to my sister, and her friend said he worked in security, court officer for 15 years, for 6 or 7 judges. And then they had the election, we had an election, new people got voted into office. Person that got voted in came in and said, called 14 of them into the office, didn't know them, hadn't pulled their records, their files, their nothing, and said, your services are no longer needed, you can go home. And they standing there like, what? No severance, no nothing, that it's it. And 15 years, and was like, what do we do now? Well, here's the thing. If you have a plan, you don't have to get a plan. And sometimes situations and circumstances happen that you may not have a plan. But just like you said, if it's going to continue to happen, that first time, you got to get a plan. You got to think. And sometimes it means tapping into what's here and making means out of it. So I absolutely love that. I'm going to skip around through here for a little bit because it's, there's my favorite part I want to get to. We're going to do that one last. And I think you know what part I'm talking about. But I want to talk about these marriage and divorce wounds. Okay. Tell us a little bit about the marriage and divorce wounds. And again, you guys going to have to purchase the book. You're going to have to go to drmonicayjackson.com. And you're going to have to purchase the book. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Yes, you're going to have to. It is well worth the purchase, and connect with her and network with her. She has a lot of great things going on. And if you are needing somebody to put together some training packages, you do that too, right?
Yes, I do.
Absolutely. Yes. I want to talk about a little bit of these marriage and divorce wounds. And I love how you have the checkoffs. I love it. Tell us a little bit about that.
I want to first say, for those that have been married or those who've never been married, those in marriages that they shouldn't have been in the first place, marriage is not for everybody. Marriage is not for everybody. And singleness there's nothing wrong with being single. However, society will make you feel like something's wrong with you because you're single. Mm-hmm. And I think I may have mentioned in the book, I grew up in the church. So I believe in what I was taught and the things that I was, and I tried to live it. I will say, now I'm no discredit to my ex-husband. I will say that well, maybe there is a little bit, but
right. Just a little bit. I heard it because I have it too. I heard it.
If I I did not want to have children, I never would have gotten married. And I say that because the church teaches that's what you're supposed to do. However, how many people do we know have had children and out of wedlock? But it wasn't something that God punished them for. Man was punishing them. We were too busy trying to live up to the expectations of man. Now, I'm not telling anybody go out there and have babies out of wedlocks or do whatever. What you do is between you and your God. And is that going to stop you from getting into heaven? Again, these are just Dr. Monica's questions. These are Dr. Monica's. So I'm trying to take the guilt out of anybody who feels like they've gotten married or in a marriage for the wrong reason. And they tell you this in church, to get married, you go to school, you get married, you live happily ever after. Yeah. Well, I didn't have the happily ever after. There's check marks. Oh, he's an engineer, he's tall, he's dark, he's handsome, he owns his own house, he does this, da 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 da, he treats me like a queen, da da da. All these things, those are surface things. Yeah, he's a good person, he's attentive, but you really never know anybody until you're living in under the roof with him.
That's right.
You really don't. Now the church, we talk against shacking up. But how do you get to know somebody? How do you really know? Then they say, well, God joins together. How many people do we really know in a marriage that we believe and know that God brought those two together? How many? Very few. Very, very few, if any. A lot of us, we did the joining. We chose.
God ain't had nothing to do with it.
Didn't have absolutely nothing to do with it. And some of us wouldn't even know if he did. And if he did, we may run away from it. That's real. Because we have different expectations than what I believe God has expectation. What is the purpose of marriage? What did I say? If I didn't want to have children.
Okay. Right. Is it necessary for me to marry?
Correct.
Yeah, right.
So it wasn't, I'm not going to say it wasn't a deciding factor. It was there, there was some love there, but had I not looked at my biological clock ticking and okay, let me choose the best specimen that's available. And I think a lot of us have done that. And so when you have these checklists,
did we lose you, Dr. Monica? Dr. Monica? So we are still talking about marriage and divorce wounds with Dr. Monica. And for those of you who are just joining, this is Laquita Parks. And hey, this is the power of, no, I'm going to say the power of your story. It is not the power of your story. This is my heart on pages.
Okay. So when you talk about these checklists that you want for your mate, you may get that, but you may get a whole lot of other stuff that you didn't even know about or ever imagine. And I did.
Okay.
I did.
Okay. But I can relate. I relate. Oh, I relate to that.
But here's the thing about it. When you get it and you know you got it, but you turn in a blind eye. Because now
you're trying to make it work.
Well, you're trying to make it work and you're trying to not look like a failure. You're trying to uphold an image, an expectation. Or here's a good one. Oh, I can change him. I can fix him.
Yeah.
Or I can fix her.
Yeah.
Or I'm not going to be like her last man, boyfriend. Or I'm not going to be like her his last girlfriend.
You know, isn't that amazing too? Isn't that how we create our own wounds though?
Absolutely.
Trying to live up to standards that we don't have any business trying to live up to. We're trying to live like the Joneses and we don't know what's going on in the Joneses' house.
Yes.
That's why I say secrets. We have people walking around holding secrets that's not theirs to hold. That's not their secrets to keep, and it's causing all kinds of destruction on the inside of their bodies.
Correct.
So it's the same thing. I like that with the wounds. We're holding on to expectations that came from what was created, and things that we don't even know and may not even really believe, but it's what mama them did.
That's right.
I like that. That's a beautiful picture of you in there, by the way.
Yeah. And then here's the sad part about it is that not only that is, why do we have this expectation that we don't want anybody to know, as if we're the only ones who ever been through it? But because we are silent about our wounds, then this is why we're embarrassed by them. But when you talk to people and you read the book, everybody's going through. You mentioned that you can relate to every single one of those tears.
Yes, I can.
Well, so many other people can too. And what you've been through, somebody's gone through worse. And if we were to speak about it, do we understand that we can heal a lot sooner? A lot of people are committing suicide, jumping out of buildings, shooting up places because they're hurting. Somebody didn't listen to them. Whatever it is, they're secrets that they've been holding for years. And it's only going to take so much that somebody can put up with before they erupt. And it's just something we have to learn to be a little selfish. I tell people, being selfish is self-care. And nobody ever tells you to be selfish. Everybody tells you to be giving. It's better to give than receive. Sometimes you need to receive. Sometimes you have to set your boundaries and step away.
And learn how to be a receiver.
Correct.
Sometimes we can't. Sometimes we're better givers than we are receivers.
Yes.
But you have to learn how to be a receiver. Yes. There's blessing in receiving, just like there's blessing in giving. One of my favorite wounds in marriage and divorce is stop being concerned about what others think. They are not living your reality. Some people have good intentions and others simply do not provide wise counseling. Know and recognize the difference. This is my favorite because this is in every aspect of life.
Yes, yes.
Always seek wise counsel. Correct. Don't go and talk to your friend who gonna shoot up the neighborhood and tell them you mad and somebody did something. What they gonna do? They gonna come and they gonna shoot up the neighborhood. But if you seek wise counsel, seek somebody who is wise and who is slow to anger and who will talk to you and calm you and help you to make some rational decisions. I love that. We don't have a lot more time left, but I want to get into the last one, Dr. Monica.
Okay.
Man, I want to get into some children wounds. I know you thought I was going to talk about church wounds, but I want you to read. I haven't read the church wounds, but we talked a little bit about that. Okay. But I want to talk about some children wounds. I have 3 children, 3 adult children, and they are the pride of they are the joy of my life until I had my grandchildren. And now the children take a seat in the back, and the grandchildren take front and center. Yes. I love my children, but because they have to bring the grandchildren around. So. But let's talk a little bit about children wounds. Okay. That's a touchy subject.
Oh yeah,
it's absolutely. A touchy subject.
Absolutely.
And I haven't read all of. I'm a thumber. Okay. Through. Okay. I love the way. I love the way that you obey. Some people would say obey in the spirit. Some people would say your subconscious was talking to you. Whatever it was, I love how you obeyed it, and I love how you were so open and just poured out. And I love it. Because as you read it, even in the best relationships, there are some wounds in there. But the healing part takes place, and then you can rebuild those relationships. So let's talk a little bit about children wounds. And I see you gave some examples and you told some stories here. but share with us why, and I know you were led, but why children? Why children wound? Not it didn't say a child wound or a children wound, because some of us have multiple children. But why would you talk about children wounds?
I talked about children wounds. I want to read the very first of this chapter. I think the worst pain that one can experience is from a child that you birth. The child that many of us purposed to bring into the world, nurtured, developed, and loved unconditionally, becomes a prodigal, stray from our teachings and break our hearts into a million pieces. That's what I experienced with my only child. And when you go through things that are so out of the norm, and when I say out of the norm, I always have heard things going on in the spiritual realm, never experienced those things in the spiritual realm in that respect. I hear what people say. I hear a lot of things people say that I don't see happening. But when you physically see a transformation of a child, literally, when you can look at someone's eyes and not see them there, that's a transformation. It's almost as if you're looking at a drug addict's eyes, how their eyes look.
They're dark, like there's nothing there.
There's nothing there. And when there's nothing there, something else bigger is going on. And whatever that force is, no matter how much you want to do something about it, there is nothing you can do about it. But you have to first recognize that you can't do anything about it. And if you try to do something about it, it's going to kill you, literally. And I do mean that. I talk about the experience I went through with my only child and literally feeling like I was dying here again, dying for 7 days in the bed. And I'm sitting here like, okay, on the 7th day, I'm like, Lord, if you don't get me out of this bed, I'm going to die today. So when people say that they know what it's like to die from a heartbreak, I know what that feels like. And I was on the brink because I was so devastated, never expecting what happened with my only child inside the church. Okay, with the former pastor, with the former first lady and their child. And so when you realize that you are dealing with outside forces, and when you know you're dealing with outside forces, and you start to see those outside forces visually, demonic manifestations, literally, this is something you don't take into your own hands. And so I felt like, again, step back and control the things that you can. I'm stepping away because I can't handle this. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm not going to try to do anything about it. I've done what I could prior to anything occurring. I did everything prior, and none of that helped. Praying didn't help. Prophetic words didn't help. I call them prophet-lying. There's a lot of people prophet-lie. Prophet-lying, prophet-he-lying, prophet-she-lying.
Yes, they're lying.
And none of it manifests. And that's when I started to really say, you know what, God, I have some issues with church. I have some issues with people who call themselves walking this walk, but not living it. And so I have to step away from all of that, because what I'm seeing is I'm not seeing the examples and I'm not seeing the demonstrations. So now I'm confused. I am confused. I'm not confused about God. I'm confused about the teachings that I've had. Some of it just doesn't make sense to me anymore. Again, not God doesn't make sense. The teachings don't make sense. The teachings of Christianity don't make sense to me. I don't accept some things by faith, blind faith anymore, because that's not what God is showing me. He's actually showing me some of these things are the opposite. Exactly.
I trust but verify.
And so just because I read something in that Bible doesn't mean that those really God's words. Who knows if there's those God's words? We weren't there. Somebody else interpret those. If you talk to people, they're going to interpret things different way. They're going to slant things to fit into their agenda. So I had to make sure that my relationship was vertically. Okay, Lord, guide me. Okay, I'm not hearing you the way that I'm told I'm supposed to hear you. But so guess what? Dr. Monica is going to do what she feels is best for her in this situation. And if you decide to move me in a different direction that I'm clear and I know about, and that I'm receptive. But until then, I have to do what's in my best interest. Emphasis on my. Because if I didn't, it would have broken me. It would have sent me to an insane asylum. It would make me start questioning every single thing. Okay, I still question things, but guess what? I set my boundaries and I don't have to deal with them. And I know too many parents, and I'm going to say this because it is probably not nice to say, but it is what it is. Some parents will give their own life for their child, but is that what you're supposed to do?
Yeah, that's a bit much. I love my children. I hear that all the time. I'll die for my children, or I'll die. I hear that, and I think that they feel that, but they don't quite reason that out and see what that means.
Correct.
And I don't know many people. It's very few people who have actually had to do that.
Correct.
So those are words, and we have to work out our own salvation. Yes. Every single person, you have to rightly divide the word, research the word, divide it and divide it again. Correct. And you have to work out your own salvation.
Correct.
It is amazing to me that everybody is going through something. Everybody goes through something, but how do you come out of it? How do you not stay in a cycle, in a continual cycle where you're constantly spiraling down?
Yes.
You have to. That means if you always do what you've always done, you're going to keep getting what you've always gotten. Correct. So you have to. We've got to do more than sit in a church and hear what the preacher or the deacon is saying, and it doesn't line up. It's never going to line up if it's not right. It will feel good because it's sparking my emotion. Yes. So I migrate to those things that make me feel good. Yes. But is it about a feeling? So I have a good friend, my mentor always says, don't be fooled by your feelings, or your feelings will have you feeling like a fool. Right. And talk about having to go back to the drawing board and rethink everything that I thought. I've been there. It's like, this isn't right. Having somebody saying something and I've been hearing this, and then I go and like, huh? And then you're having a conversation. It's like, well, this says that, and this, oh, well, that's not what that means. And I'm like, right. wait. Yes. So you have to reason it out, reason your own salvation and work out and do it for what works for you, rightly divided. And I believe that if you pray in all earnesty and in all sincerity, God will guide you to where you're supposed to be. I believe that. This has been a great conversation. We had a little snafu of some technology, and but that's technology. It's real life, and it happens. So Dr. Monica Y. Jackson, thank you so much for being here. I am going to read this book, and you're going to be getting some feedback from me because I'm going to get through it. I started reading it last night or the night before. And you mentioned that you're not an avid reader. I'm a publisher, so I read. Correct. So I read, but I'm enthused, and it's a different kind of reading because I definitely read my clients' manuscripts, but I am so excited to be reading books where I can look at the name and I can put a face with the name, and I'm actually accessible to that person. I had somebody ask me the other day, are you reading, I think it was the lady, the actress, Viola Davis. Have you read Viola Davis's book? And I said, no. Oh, it's a good book. You should. I said, I'm not reading Viola Davis's book, but I am reading Dr. Monica Y. Jackson's book. And I said, and it's a book on wounds of wisdom. And I shared that with the person. And I said, I love the fact that these are people that I can look at and I can talk to who are people just like me. They're attainable, they're reachable, and they've written some amazing work. And that's what I'm reading.
Yes.
That's what I'm reading.
It's funny how we elevate people, even with the celebrity status. I mean, people pick up a certain book. I mean, like you mentioned, Viola Davis, they'll put my book next to her book, and they'll pick up her book before they pick up mine because her name is recognizable. But it may not speak to them the same way. So a lot of the books that people read, I don't read. Because I just don't sit long enough to read sometimes.
Well, and you know what, I'm a common person, not common in the way of just plain, but I'm a down-to-earth person, and I don't have that status. And I don't know if I had that status, if I would change. I can't say what I'm not, but what I can say is I like the fact that there isn't anything that's going to make me rush out and pick up that book. I like to support people, number one, and I didn't purchase your book just to support you. I purchased it because after our conversation, I was very curious about it.
Yes.
And I could relate.
Correct.
There was a lot of it that I can relate to it. And since I've gotten the book and I've thumbed through the book, and a lot of the affirmations have stood out to me, these are things in this book that I can apply to my life.
Correct.
And that's why I picked it up. And I can say, hey, I know Dr. Monica Jackson. I could do a personal referral.
Yes.
And I know that if I called you or sent you a message, I know that you can respond to me. Yes. And I don't have to wait to get a message from your publicist telling me that you're not available for me, little wee person, because you're not big enough for my circle. So,
correct.
So I appreciate that. I love it. And there's a journal. Are you going to do more of these journals?
Well, the journal, when I started the journal, it's because there was a group I was working with and they wanted to study. And so it was developed primarily for them. But as I'm developing more in the courses I'm developing, it needs to be a lot more in depth than what it is. Mm-hmm. And so I've halted the journal. In fact, it's not on my website or available anymore because of that. So I'm still working through some things because the purpose of the book is to help someone heal. You may not 100% heal, but you can be better than where you are. Get away from that devastating or that crippling pain. And when you're able to speak about your wounds, you speak about those who wounded you, who hurt you, and you no longer are angry by it, you can talk about it, that's a great feeling. Now, I'm not gonna say all the feelings that you feel about them isn't gone. Mm-hmm. You have this it still has a feeling of hurt, but not, and that hurt is for discernment purposes, and for protection. No matter who they are, no matter their title, whether they're mother, father, sister, daughter, brother, pastor, you still have to set boundaries and be careful and not surround yourself with people or be in their company just because they have a certain title. Mm-hmm. Again, back to those expectations that we set. Some people have been very wounded by their parents, by their children, and it's not a safe place. Mm-hmm. And we have to learn to accept that until and if it never changes.
That's right. That's right. As my 95-year-old auntie would say, you done already raised them. You can't raise them no more.
Correct.
So thank you so much, Dr. Monica Y. Jackson. This has been another wonderful conversation on the My Heart on Pages. I keep wanting to say the power of your story because there's power in your story, and I do a segment, a show called Power of Your Story on Clubhouse and a radio show, The Power of Your Story. But My Heart on Pages, and we talked about your heart on pages, and I love your book. It's beautifully done. It's well written. I love the cover. It speaks to me, and I love your heart on pages. Thank you so much for being here, and tell us one more time before we say goodbye where they can pick up your book and how they can connect with you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to your audience. Thank you for just embracing the book and spreading it around and letting people know, because this is how we heal. Each one, reach one, can heal one. And so you can get the book on drmonicajackson.com. You can also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So just reach out. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if we can help you with your story, we can help you take your story from a thought to a realization. No matter where you are in your story journey, if you have a story and you have a thought, because 100% of everybody living and dead has a story, we can help you start writing your story. If you start writing and you find yourself stuck, we can help you get unstuck. And if you've written your story and you want to get it published and you need some help doing that, we can help you do that too. We can help you no matter what, no matter who you get to write your story or share your story or publish your story. Tell your story. There's healing in your story. And there is always somebody waiting on the other side of your story so that they can get healing from their story. And it's been a plump, pleasing pleasure, better than a triple decker peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you so much. You guys have an amazing day. And until next time, be good.
Yes.